The death of Raticate theory has been around for a long time, generally seen in creepypastas and
game theory,
but rarely is it seen in a truly genuine way. Whoa, dude, did you know that the rival's Raticate died and that's totally why he's at Lavender Town? Dude, whoa. Whoa.
Tell him to go eat shit, Johnny.
Tell him yourself.
Eat shit, asshole! Fall off your horse!
Today we're looking at Festival of Champions because this story uses the Raticate theory as central motivation to the characters and to instill a lot of heart into the series. Really, we're just using this as a launch point to praise Tombo's work, especially with his characters, some more, because honestly, this series is fantastic and definitely deserves some more praise. So today's menu, we're going to set the stage on what happens in the story regarding Raticate's death and the quick details around the fallout. Then look at how Tombo uses this to establish an emotional through line to the series and as a launch point on different character journeys, particularly Blue's journey and Green's journey. Finally, a few thoughts on where this series may take those ideas into the future. Let's crack in.
Tell me!
To recap how this is covered in Festival, Green's journey is going real well. They come across some abducted Pokemon before heading into Rock Tunnel. Green feels like this is no business of theirs, but Raticate wants to help. Relenting, Green gets Raticate to release the Pokemon. Then, Team Rocket arrive and start self-destructing Koffings all over the place. Raticate manages to grab some of the Koffings and send them back at Team Rocket before they explode, and the gang get away. Green pushes forward through Rock Tunnel, letting Raticate guard the rear, not realizing how poisoned it is. This is anime poison, by the way. That's a much bigger deal than just the Pokemon fainting in the games.
I hope you... Yes! Yes! Yes!
Cinnamon, no!
Yes!
Cinnamon, you've poisoned me!
I have! With cinnamon!
Raticate pushes through until the team are safely through the cave before finally dropping dead. In response to the heartbreak of losing their friend, Green kills off his emotions. Growlithe pushes himself even harder to carry on Raticate's will, and Eevee falls into a deep depression. This makes Green give her away to Blue, only to see her again after she evolves into an Espeon during the festival. For a chapter reference, this is all covered in Chapter 7.
You can't just have your characters announce how they feel. That makes me feel angry.
It's bizarre to think of Raticate as a part of an emotional core to a series. No one's favorite Pokemon is Raticate. Hell, Game Freak even remade it in the Chonky Chonkster. So, on the surface of it, using Raticate as such a driving force is an odd choice, one which is actually handled with surprising amount of care in this series. Raticate's death sets up a lot of the emotional investment in Festival. You've got sort of the high-level investment with following the different characters and their ideals and becoming the best trainer, then our main character's emotional reactions to the events that have taken place during their journey. Namely, what we're looking at today, of course, centering around Raticate. So, why does it work? Well, first of all, if you're picking up Festival, chances are you're already a Pokemon fan. It's a classic trick to pull from these other stories as a baseline to launch your own tale. This way, going in, we already know who the main characters are, how the world works, and the major points of the journey. So we can skip over the establishing of what the Pokemon world is, the specifics of the characters, the badges, etc., and go straight into the story that Tombo wants to tell. Despite this, Tombo still manages to add just enough information so people that are fresh to Pokemon can still come in with a decent baseline to the series. Speaking of Pokemon, they've always really stood as something between pet and friend, something that regardless of the classification, it means a lot to those that train them and us as the reader because we can very easily empathize with them. It's this weird middle ground of seeing these creatures as both friend and animal, so it makes reading something as simple as Lapras's resolve to defend Red and prove its worth hit so hard. But we're talking about Raticate. Tombo is able to tie Raticate into the actions and abilities of some of the other key Pokemon in this series, even reusing scenes to show that Raticate's will still lives on in these Pokemon. For example, Arcanine's speed or Espeon's victory pose. For the human characters, seeing how they respond and how it affects change in themselves, how their own journeys are affected, and how their worldviews react and change. That being said, let's take a closer look at those main characters, Blue and Eevee, Green and Arcanine.
Archie, don't do it!
Try me, bitch.
Blue's journey focuses on rejection. Whether that be in the rejected starter, the rejected teammate, or her own feelings of rejection. We're going to use this space to talk about Eevee's journey too, from Green's ace to heartbreak to Blue's ace. As much as Blue may feel like an addition character, with Green and Red being the leads, her journey is no less important. She started travelling after the other two left, connecting with Bulbasaur as the rejected starter. There's this really nice shot of Bulbasaur looking sadly out to the distance since no one picked it to travel with. Blue, wanting to start her own travels, decides to team up with the sad Mon and they begin their way. What's important to know about early Blue is that she has a phobia after being bitten by a Pokemon, leading to her being very conscious of how to keep Pokemon at their correct distance. This is both a literal thing, like for poisonous pokes like Nidoran, but also a reflection of the emotional distance she imposes on her Pokemon out of fear of rejection. It's a great way to show Blue's character without going all, yes, I keep emotional distance, for I have fears. Man, that's probably not how Blue sounds. But yes, it's a well-integrated way of using a character quirk to reveal more about a character's heart. If you're more visual focused, this is represented with the gloves that she wears. Originally used as a way to keep herself safe from being bitten again, it's really a sign of that distance still being in place. When her fears are challenged and ultimately beaten, she takes the gloves off. That's why in early flashbacks, we see her with gloves on, but in the present, gloves off. This moment of her overcoming her fears happens in response to Eevee's struggles, so let's pick up with her. Eevee stopped battling after Raticate died. In response, Green gives her away to Blue, which we'll look at more when we talk about him. With Blue, Eevee really doesn't get better, and for want of a better word, she falls into a pokey coma. Unable to do anything else for her, Blue tries something risky. She gets Haunter to Dream Eaters splice their dreams together, think like Inception style, and enters Eevee's dreams. In the dream world, Eevee is living in this fantasy where she got Raticate an antidote and is repressing the pain of the truth. Festival takes this all really seriously and managed to pull this off incredibly well. Blue and Eevee both face life as they want it. Raticate lived, Red and Green are happy, everyone is getting along. Blue recognizes that it's all false though. She would never insult their dreams by imposing her own over them. Eevee acknowledges Blue's conviction and stands against the fantasy that she created. In defeating it, waking up, and choosing to live. Choosing to honor the life that Raticate sacrificed itself for. Her own. Okay, so let's just skip over how well Tombo set up and paid off a depressed character in the form of a Pokemon, because that was just masterfully written and drawn. What I love about this encounter is that it's synchronistic growth. Both sides change. Eevee and Blue face different demons in the same events, and both grow from it. They both save each other as much as they save themselves. Heck, it's just so good. In the next chapter, we see Eevee evolves into an Espeon. Mechanics-wise, Espeon comes from having maxed out friendship with an Eevee, an acknowledgement that Blue and Eevee really have bonded. If you want to get real bougie about it, you can also see this as Espeon taking on a new name and a new identity. She's no longer Eevee, which Green trained. She's Espeon now, ready to fight for Blue and their dreams. That really snapshots who Blue is as a trainer and how her and Eevee's journey changed in a post-Raticate world. We won't go into how her battle style is a complete clown fiesta though. This series is currently in the middle of her first major battle and it's a bit of a ride. There's actually been a bit of tension built up between her and Green too, so maybe if she wins her current battle, she might just get pitched up against Green in the future. Speaking of which, let's look at Green.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Green's journey is the meat and potatoes for the Raticate fallout. Like with Blue, we'll use this as a space to talk about Arcanine also. So, Raticate's death is really the defining moment of Green's journey. It's the switch from happy life's great Green to victory at all costs Green. Before we label Green as a massive
ice hole. A big ice hole.
We've got to understand where he's coming from. This is essentially the first major tragedy in his life, and he's alone. This 10-year-old kid is about as far away as he can get from home, with the body of a friend who, to his understanding, he killed. Of course, he responded poorly to that. Without anything else to fall back on, he falls back on his dream. Be the best. Now, there's sort of two ways you can look at Green's actions from there on out. In attack mode or defense mode. In attack mode, he sees Eevee's heartbreak and failure to battle as weakness. Anything that makes someone feel that way is weakness and must be expunged. All his choices should be made towards achieving his dream. Letting emotions influence him can lead to that weakness, so all emotions must go. Love, pain, joy, gone. There is only victory or defeat, running towards power. In defense mode, he's overcorrecting from the tragedy by isolating himself from the things that could cause him pain. Firstly by giving away Eevee, then from distancing himself from his remaining Pokemon. All his choices should be made to minimize the chances of being put in that situation again, or being too weak to keep his friends safe. With no one close, there's no chance of being hurt, running from pain. It's these mindsets that have melded together and cemented themselves in Green's psyche. When we see him now, he does come off as an
Ice hole. A big ice hole.
judging and ridiculing people for the simple act of caring. Remember, Green's conditioned to see that as weakness, and any weakness falls on the shoulders of those who let themselves bear it. But is there a redemption in store for Green? Let's talk about when he gives away Eevee. This is fresh off the death, and Eevee is refusing to battle, refusing to do, well, much of anything. Green's never had a strong ability to emote with Pokemon, even more so now. Seeing Eevee like this, his starter, he has no idea on how to respond, so he makes a tough call to give her to Blue, someone who has a lot of empathy for Pokemon and a history with Eevee. You can see in this panel that this is absolutely heartbreaking for Green. He knows it's a cruel choice, but it's the only option he feels like he has. It's honestly the best choice for Eevee too. Green does not have the skills or the ability to help her at this point. Green doesn't even see her again until the festival, when she's already evolved into an Espeon, and this is also a tough moment for him, seeing his old starter so happy with someone else that she evolved through friendship. There's these great panels of him reaching out to her but remembering the pain they went through, the literal blood on his hands before pulling back, unable to let himself care for that Eevee anymore. What's cool is that Arcanine responds though, visibly disappointed that Green is leaving Eevee hurt yet again. Arcanine is noted in the story as having that bond to connect with people and Pokemon. He very quickly became the closest to Eevee after Raticate, and there's still that connection there. Arcanine has this very interesting contention between loyalty to Green and his own connections. Green's worldview has been imprinting on Arcanine for so long, he's becoming a reflection of his trainer's ideology, something which is likely to snap Arcanine at some point after a bit too much pressure from Green. Where do we see it ending? Well, obviously the expectation is that Red fights Green in the finals, and honestly, I don't see any reason that it wouldn't go that way. Green, having conquered every challenge before him, finally comes up against the strength of Red's conviction, ultimately falling to it and changing his point of view. At the moment, I think it will come down to Arcanine versus Pikachu, where Pikachu embraces Raticate's speed to ultimately overcome Arcanine, who has been told to never use it again. Alternatively, Arcanine loses his heart to battle and simply falls at the finish line. There has been a few seeds planted that Green might fight Blue in the next round after she beats Skylar, and I'm really hoping that this is the case. It'll come down to Arcanine having to beat the hell out of Espeon in what will probably be the saddest point in the entire series. Green pushing Arcanine further and further, doing some serious damage to Espeon, which ultimately becomes the breaking point for them both. I do really want to see some more flashbacks in this series too, especially around the Silph Co fight and the final Giovanni fight. Silph is already a big deal to Green and Red, which we've seen, so seeing all of these showdowns with Giovanni just sounds like amazing parts to read through. The problem is, with the release rate at the moment, we might never actually see the end of this story, which is a damn shame. Tombo has absolutely nailed this story so far, and I do hope he finds the time to end up finishing it. This series is amazing. Do yourself a favor and go read it if you haven't already. Physical copies are still sadly sold out, but there is a link in the description to keep your eyes open for fresh stock coming in. Hopefully there will be, because I want to get my hands on some too. Tombo has done such good work with this series and definitely deserves the support to keep it going. Thanks for watching. This has been CG, and I'll see you Gs in the next one.